recording reading. So we can share that with our readers and they can use it as they will. So Michael, we're thrilled to have you here and thrilled to have you read. Thank you for joining us.
Hey guys, thank you. Thank you, Gillian, for hosting. Thanks everybody for being here. It has been a crazy couple years. One of the things I've been writing about lately, I lost my grandmother 3 years ago. I lost my brother about a year and a half ago, and I lost my stepbrother a few months ago. So that's kind of been dominating my writing. So I'll try and loosen it up later. We'll get a bunch of death poems and then we'll loosen it up. This one's called Last Game of Catch. 8 months, and still sometimes my left hand takes the shape it made against the back of your neck when I help them move you from plastic armchair to deathbed. Texture of an anchor chain, your eyes like hills without houses. Earlier, someone told me how beautiful the world becomes once it's slowed down. The hemorrhaging of garbage bags, even bullets through stained glass. Last night, you appeared to say nothing can happen without an observer. So I realized we must live on just long enough for corpse light to reach another's eyes. That last photon of baseball we merely hold, tracing stitches while dandelions swat lawnmowers, then burst into golden applause. Yeah. So Rattle has this series where it's called Poets Respond, where you read a news story, then you write a poem about it within that week. This is one they were kind enough to give a home. Climate protesters throw soup over Van Gogh's sunflowers. For hours, I've been arguing with a friend who believes teachers are on a crusade to make children use litter boxes when I hear about sunflowers bathed in soup to protest the use of fossil fuels. Last night, I kept picturing my brother's gaze before he died, like he could see the whole hospital ward melting, wavelengths collapsing into pinheads, the way time does when you fly fast enough. I don't know how to keep you safe. Turns out Van Gogh made several paintings of sunflowers in pale vases, petals drooping like golden rain, like he felt he'd missed something. Sometimes it's easy to forget what the earth makes of our bones, way down deep in vaults that never get locked. One day, there will be no one left to explain how clay yields yellow ochre and the hair of wild beasts can be bristled into brushwork, how dust can be squeezed into stars. This is one about my stepbrother. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. After my stepbrother gets shot and killed by cops in Milwaukee. The day after she sees her son dragged from the street like roadkill, my stepmother returns to work. My father tries to stop her, afraid she might end up serving the same men they saw on the news. Implacable Confederate statues finally granted an excuse to open their holsters. But right now, she'd rather hear the cash register than her own heartbeat. And so for hours, she fills bags with sandwiches plumed in lettuce and tiny cauldrons of broth, black forks with brittle tines, white napkins that stain so easily. Pausing sometimes to dab her eyes or silence a buzzing phone. Strangers ask if she's all right. Just something I'm dealing with, she says, then takes what they give and returns what they're owed. This, I think, is my last death poem, unless all the other ones are death poems too, which is also possible. This one's called Now That I'm Too Old to Be a Father. Waiting on a date, I feel my phone quake and look down at a young black man in a dollar crisp suit with a silver bow tie. A message from my father asking me not to let anyone outside the family see my stepbrother's corpse, especially reporters who seem pleasantly surprised to find white relatives they could ask to comment on the half-inch spasms of a police officer's forefinger. Like words only happen once, our knuckles get tired of pretending we're more than recycled parts, pinches in the tablecloth called nothingness. Then a woman in a red dress sits down opposite an immaculate plate and smiles. And the waiter brings questions and wine, and we listen as the screen goes dark. This is a little bit older one. This one's called Ode to Raccoons. When you asked what raccoons eat, I said, anything. They'll literally eat anything. You went on fixing your poem and didn't even chide me for being probably the 10,000th person that day to misuse the word, literally. As though I might go out to the garage this morning and find that raccoons have gotten into my barrel of carburetors again, gnawing on last summer's ruddy nails, feasting on liver-shaped shards of busted sidewalk. How to be angry, though, at creatures who can live off sand and pantyhose, who metabolize wine corks and convert the sticks left over from corn dogs into mother's milk for a whole new gaze of raccoons. See how they chew through the national debt, how they make tea from our bad dreams, how even prejudice tastes to them like salmon and ginger sauce. No wonder they sometimes go mad, weighed down as they are by so much undigested scorn, unfathomable ounces of heartache. No wonder even the saints among us reach for pellet guns whenever they show up, claws poised, ready to rip open trash bags filled with human regret that to a raccoon must smell like paradise. Here's another weird one. I think I was reading too much Milton. Postcard from the Deep. Turns out the devil is pretty boring. Spends most days telling stories about typos in divorce papers, comma splices, and suicide notes. Occasionally, he starts to tell a joke about monks and a stripper and a bowl made of bread, but keeps forgetting the punchline and trails off, his shadow a slumped gargoyle, then a captcha that keeps changing. You see those weak slats of sunlight leaking through the brimstone rafters? He tried his hand at gardening, but all the rows came up askew, soybeans choking turnips, star fruits like underfed zoo animals. Sometimes he'll sit there for hours in a chair made of fish bones, mumbling to anyone who listen about those tumbling beams actually hailing from quasars, which are supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies, the ones with too much to swallow. I only get what's thrown away, he complains, then shrugs, and his shadow twists into a noose, then a running horse, then a flower you cannot name. I think I'll just do a couple more. Here's another weird one. The shapeshifter in therapy for survivor's guilt. First time I saw her, she was crying in a pharmacy. I transformed into a puppy and licked her ankles. She kicked me, pointed out the absence of consent, and threatened to call the cops. True, she had a point. But later, when I became a scattering of rose petals across her windshield, I thought I saw her smile before turning the wipers on. It was tough spelling out my apology in the clouds. I never stressed myself that far, but I meant it. That Friday, I let her ride me through the park, then became a butterfly and kissed her forehead. She texted later, said she was lonely, but didn't want to rush things. So I became the rain and pattered off the eaves until she fell asleep. Soon, she started to have fun with it. Show me a baby goat, a pterodactyl, a giraffe with flippers. She even made videos for her family, her playing badminton with Virginia Woolf, cooking a grilled cheese with Abraham Lincoln. I started to wonder why she never asked to see my true self. Sometimes lying next to her, I change back and wait for her to wake up and run away screaming. Every time she stirred, though, I'd become a quilt that smelled like her favorite perfume. But it turns out she liked me best as water. Days she didn't want to talk, I just filled the bathtub and let her soak in me, flowing over her scars like I was pouring down the rungs of a ladder. Last one. Again, thanks everybody for being here. It's an honor to read with you guys. This one's called Cosmology in Reverse. After the mile-wide mushroom shrinks into itself, then sings upward like a tiny metal angel. After ashes roil into a laughing multitude that bathes its way into clothes. After a rifle-thin boy trades his weapons for a sandwich, after bowmen catch arrows by their feathers and return each point to its cradle. After the soil rises and enters us, then wriggles out our mouths so that our bare hands can shape it into flesh, we press like clay onto bones. After spears somehow stitch the gaps in fur by kissing them. After every beast has risen and thanked its creators with just a widening of the eyes. After cells fuse and trees drink in their own leaves, all drawn tight as a seed, a fist, after fingers, after me, after you. Thanks.
Great job.
Yay.
Wonderful
All right.
stuff. Woo!
It's okay to unmute for a second. There aren't that many of us. It's okay to mute and show your unmute and show your appreciation. So
Hey.
right on, Michael.
Excellent.
Beautiful. You are, I think I said this the first time I heard you read, you are the master of the short poem, making your endings just punch in right to the core. And I love hearing you read. Thank you so much. So really wonderful.
The goal is to get off the stage as fast as possible before you screw up. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being on the stage at all. So thank you so much. So, all right. Our next reader is Kenneth Chacón. He, him, that vato, is a sixth son cholo from the city of Fresno in the great state of Califas. He is a husband, father, and grandfather, and the author of a collection of poetry, The Cholo Who Said Nothing, and has publications in over 30 magazines, including Spillway, Blackbird, Palette Poetry, the Colorado Review, and Risache, among others. He is a pushcart-nominated poet and was named a finalist for the Alta California Poetry Prize in 2022. And in 2023, he won Thin Air Magazine's Bird of the Hand Prize. Please welcome Kenneth Chacón.
Hey, all right. Thank you. Thank you. You read that, with a lot of ánimo. So thank you. I appreciate that. You have to toot your own horn. So I wrote that and, I wanted to feel good about myself. Hi, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. Michael, your work has really, really just stupefied me. It's so good and it's so subtle. It's so brilliantly weird while also being simultaneously subtle. It's kind of strange, you're far out when to catch the eye, but you're so subtle and sleight of hand in those little images. So thank you for your words. So I want to share, I think 3, maybe 4 poems. And Gillian, once again, thank you so much for having me. The first poem I'm going to share is called Thanksgiving 1989. And it's got the little epigraph, After Aztec Angel by Luis Omar Salinas. And for those of you who don't know Luis Omar Salinas, I think he's regarded in some circles as being the father of Chicano poetry. When people talk well about Fresno, they talk about the poets, and the poets that I'm with here today included. Omar was like the first experience that this young, uneducated, snot-nosed Chicano had with poetry. And, I grew up poor. I didn't grow up with much education, and I didn't grow up with hardly any cultura. I grew up off like Taco Bell, and I ate like McDonald's and shit. My type of poverty wasn't the cool type of poverty you could write about like a long time later, like frijoles and shit. Like I ate like Taco Bell, you know what I mean? And so Velveeta blocks of cheese, like just totally unhealthy, but completely Americanized. And so I wrote this poem because Aztec angels spoke to me, and it made me want to learn more about my cultura, about like at that time, I thought it was all Aztecs, like anybody indigenous was an Aztec. So I learned about them. But I wrote this poem with the idea that when you're robbed of your history, when you're robbed of your cultura, you know, a people has its darkest moments, you know, when they forgot themselves, and they forget themselves so much that they no longer need people to oppress them because they oppress themselves. And it's kind of dramatic, but this is like the first poem in a collection I'm working on. Thanksgiving, 1989. Whimsical magicians stole my feathers. They lynched time and space and licked their thumbs and forefingers and smeared the war paint from my face. I once hunted elk by the lake near the mountain of the Lord. Now I hunt for bargains in the beer aisle at Speedy Liquor. I once offered my flesh for the sake of the land. Now my bones are bleached and splintered, and my blood is sweet from centuries of malnutrition, and I can't afford insulin. I wish I had the magic to kick the hands of every clock back, a hole on a wayward galleon, with the certainty of a deerskin moccasin. But all I have are Nike knockoffs from the remate, and they are tattered at the sole. All right. Yeah. Let me just drink my alcoholic beverage. I'm sorry, ancestors, forgive me. But I get really nervous for reading. So the next poem, this is the poem that was nominated for a pushcart. And I was surprised as hell, to say the least. And I think that, you know, what it taught me is just submit, eh? Like, just do it, eh? And so I'm just gonna do it. This poem is called, and I've referred to this poem once before as a Chicano spiritual. You know, I took African-American studies, African-American lit a while back, and I remember we had this whole section on Negro spirituals, if you'll pardon the expression. And I like to think of this as being like a Chicano spiritual. When you take me out of bondage and build for me a new Tenochtitlan. The water we drank was poisoned by a comet, so we fled south but returned north many years later, apologetically. We watched our mothers suffer, so we covered ourselves in shadow and cut our flesh with red, white, and blue needles. We taught our children to pierce the insides of their mouths with the right angles of textbooks and traffic lights, the ill-fated odds of a wishbone. We wore our festering carbuncles proudly as if they were ancestral embroidery. Lord, when you found me, I was picking at my wounds with the rolled up dollar bill, tiptoeing between stinking tombs of empty beer cans in need of redeeming. I hadn't slept 40 days, 40 nights. I was dying of thirst, yet water was all around. I locked myself in a box because a whimsical magician said so. I was rotting in prison. I needed money on my books for dried noodle soup. You fed me the warm cocido of your word, homemade tortillas from your hand, mantequilla y maíz, sal y limón, cebolla y chile. Lord, when you take me out of bondage, you will have to hide the way back. Lead me blindfolded through the desert to a secret, lush, and holy land, to a golden city where your burnished feet stand as the new foundations of a new Jerusalem, a new Tenochtitlan. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so my next poem, for my next magic trick, So, this next poem is called Christ in a Cholo Stance. And there's an image, the poem's going to end with an image, and it's going to be Jesus Christ on the cross wearing a beanie of thorns. And just like I steal things from Luis Omar Salinas, for instance, The Whimsical Magicians, like I just lifted that phrase right out of his poem. I stole this image from Andres Montoya, another Fresno poet. And I don't know how many of you know Andres Montoya, but Andres was this fantastic, poet, and he had this like spiritual revelation where he became an evangelical Christian. And like for many years that I knew him, that really kind of characterized him. Like he was always Jesus, Jesus. And, when he died, I really took his book to heart. And I tried to look for that metaphysical power that was larger than life, that could take, a sinner and make them into something great. And I followed that path to evangelical Christianity, and it led to a lot of years of pain. It led a lot of years of internalized white supremacy. But the one thing that it did that I'm so thankful for is it helped me tap into the idea of the divinity within. And so my relationship with church is an odd one, with Christianity is an odd one, but I got the idea for this poem because the church has taken so much from brown and Black and indigenous people all over the earth. And I got the idea that there's this church and eventually it gets broken in by the homies. So Christ in a Cholo Stance, for the homies in the church that find them, the churches that find them broken. Dreamer was the first to go to church. I always knew he would be. He was looking for premium mammon to redeem at the Highway City pawn shop. He pried the steel bars of Christ's Victorious Life Center and slipped through the gap of a bathroom window. He had to suck in his beer gut. Good thing the meth had been wearing on him. Then he did the dope fiend shuffle into the sanctuary. Shit, there was a sunrise service going down. He stood in the midst of the congregation, a deluge of well-rouged, repentant women wearing mother's pearls, bearded men weeping into ill-fitting sport coats, an off-duty sheriff standing guard, Tea Party patriots protecting the collection plate. In a corner, a former puta danced in the spirit, spinning like a whirling dervish, waving her hands in the air, shedding sin like hairs falling from a brush. No one noticed Dreamer, so he let Flaco and Paco in, and they ransacked that place, stuffing silver Last Supper chalices and golden-crusted crucifixes into stolen Raider backpacks. Then Boxer came through. You know that crazy vato's always looking to party. Negro and Spix followed with the hyenas. Next thing you know, a pachanga's going down. The homies snorted lines of coca off the covers of Costco Bibles, skinny dipped with their babies' mamas in the baptismal font. Better is one day in your house, thundering from speakers like the day of Pentecost, walls shaking like the tecato backsliding into the percussion of a diabetic syringe. Then something odd. The pompadoured pastor gave an altar call in his country gravy accent, and one by one, the homies answered. From my seat on a broken pew in the back row, I tried to warn them, but they couldn't hear me above the tongues. I climbed on the horns of the altar and proclaimed, the church stashes more indigenous treasures than the cherry auction remate. No one cared, so I shouted again. Every time a homie gets shot, a rookie cop gets his wings. But the deacon's tambourines were too loud. I thumped and thumped and thumped on the good book. Jesus hates sin, loves the sinner. He's ambivalent about citizenship. None would listen. Instead, Flaco and Paco tied their bus passes. Negro and Spix confessed they were molested as children. Boxer ate the body and the blood. Dreamer prophesied the end. Then they exchanged sangre red paños for white kerchiefs, blessed by a Joshua tree in Jerusalem. But Joshua trees grow in Aslan también. Then I spoke as the Spirit gave me utterance of heaven and hell, of jail cells and social justice. Finally, the congregation took note. They took a vote and I was sentenced to deportation for lacking state-issued identification. Then my former perros grabbed me and dragged me down the aisle towards the altar, my head bumping polished Sunday shoes, the good news circling my head like a crown of thorns, a tiara of stars. And they beat the shit out of me. They jumped me in like a backyard initiation. I looked at the cross hanging on the wall, the sun burning with the flames of 6 suns. And there was God, a golden idol of Christ in a cholo stance, arms wide, head sporting a beanie of thorns. He looked me up and down and asked, "What are you looking at, dog?" Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I do believe that's probably my time. It's been wonderful.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. It was, I love your intensity. I strive to have that kind of emotion embedded in my poems, and you did it, and it's so wonderful. And thank you, Kenneth. It has been really great to see you continuing to write and continuing to share your poetry. It just keeps getting better and better. So thank you for that. All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was a little nervous and I appreciate the support.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I know Kenneth was the one who first asked if we could record this because he was interested in watching it later and critiquing himself, but I really don't think there's anything to critique. There's only stuff to appreciate. So nicely done. All righty. Our third poet, Joseph Rios. Joseph was recently named Fresno's 6th poet laureate this very year. This is so exciting. He is the author of Shadowboxing, Poems and Impersonations from Omnidon. He's the winner of the American Book Award and was named one of the notable debut poets by Poets and Writers magazine for 2017. He is a Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. Congratulations on that too, that's fabulous. His poems can be found at Poem a Day, Huizache, The Rumpus, the San Francisco Chronicle, and on metro buses and trains in Los Angeles. And along with our other poets, he lives in Fresno. Thank you, Joseph, for being with us here today.
No, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to read with Bryan and Michael and Kenny, and yeah, this is already such a really powerful reading just as a viewer, and it's actually I believe the first time I've heard Michael read, and Kenny, like you said, is just keeps getting better and better, and I keep telling him he needs to do like a one-man show or something, like, you know, like put together 30 or 40 minutes and like really just hammer out a show, you know. I'm gonna go ahead and start with a few poems here. The first one is actually, it's a you can find it on Poem Day. It's one of the 2 that's on there. It's a poem I wrote about my grandparents. A lot of my poems are about my grandparents and their time here in the Valley, and all the stories that I've, in a lot of ways, just like Kenny was saying about Andres and Omar Salinas, is like just completely lifted up from, you know, from my grandparents. You know what I mean? They're stories that they were told and retold to me at the dinner table, breakfast table, and it was sort of one of the great joys for me to remember about about both of them is that sort of they were. I look at that first table, that breakfast table, as like my first workshop, you know, in writing and storytelling and revision. And when I say revision, I mean my grandma, you know, bending a story so that it sounds better and changing the what happened so that it's more exciting and more dramatic and more scandalous each time that she tells it. So this one is for them. It's called For Henry's Bar. And it's a story about me being a kid, having to go look for my grandpa in town. For Henry's Bar. I'm on an errand to find my grandpa. I'm 10 and finding freedom in a sanctioned outing on my bike through the streets of Clovis, California. I'll roll past Silver's house and peek into the backyard of broke drunks holding paper bags around a barrel fire. One who just came back from taking a leak is seasoning some carne they bought with the tall boys across the street at Numero Uno Market. The door chimes when I walk in and see Artemio's white mane. His mustache stretches from his nostrils into his sideburns and up into his waxed pomp of hair. My grandma says I'm not supposed to talk to him, but he always asks how she's doing. I don't see my grandpa anyplace. Art says, yeah, he must be around somewhere. So I go to Ruby's next door. I'm not allowed, but I look in. I'm hit with a gust of cigarettes and Bud Light. Half a dozen heads turn my direction, no dice. I ride down Pulaski with feet out each way. I swerve left and right, free for once. I'm this far from the shouting distance of my grandma. I take to the alley just for kicks and Papa Willie behind the appliance shop. I pull up behind Henry's, knowing Grandpa's in there. A few other grandpas too. I don't knock. I stay on the bike. I realize I'm not ready to go home, and like most men in this town, Grandpa doesn't want to be found. I keep riding. I go north towards what's left of the railroad tracks. There's a gray cloud moving across the sky, and I imagine I'm chasing it. I'm right behind it. I keep riding until it's all oleanders and stacked railroad ties. I never thought I could go this far. I get off the seat and stand. I glide next to a forgotten caboose. I imagine I am the howling train now, and my tires kick dust as they crunch over the dry dirt. Thank you. It's a strange thing, and I feel like at least in the Valley, I don't know if it's just Valley exclusive, but there's you reach a certain age, and I'm not gonna say I'm not youthful or young or anything, but there's a certain point in your life in the Valley where you start like you drive around, you can't help but say stuff like, I remember when that was all peaches, or I remember when that was all figs, or whatever. Like as soon as you start saying that, it's like, oh man, I'm no longer the young person I thought I was. But I do find myself saying that about the neighborhood, the Clovis neighborhood, or down Old Town Clovis, where my grandparents were born and grew up and lived. Because I do remember, I'm old enough to remember when the railroad tracks were still there and the packing houses came all the way into Old Town Clovis. And I mean, my grandma used to work at the packing house where the Lowe's is at in Clovis now. I mean, and I used to ride my bike there, you know, and it just seems like a time in a town that's just long, long gone. This next one is, speaking of sort of Chicano heroes in literature, we've already mentioned Andres Montoya and Omar Salinas. This one is is written after Oscar Zeta Acosta, who's the writer of Autobiography of Brown Buffalo and Revolt of the Cockroach People. And like many of our heroes of the past, you know, as time moves on and we learn more about them and our, I guess we are able to critique are heroes, and I feel like my relationship to Oscar Zeta Acosta is a lot like my relationship to elder tios and grandparents, grandfathers, father even, you know, where you can love them with all your heart and still be able to speak about their faults. And that's so dear Buffalo, dear Zeta, or to a few of my dead or nearly dead tios. I still don't know what to do with this buffalo body. I crush teacups every time I raise them to my pursed lips. How do I tenderize the meat on my bones? Theo, I see my dead father's face in your face. His furrowed eyebrow, your puffed cheeks weep into a pillow of inherited hands. This morning, I dry heaved a vat of foam into a toilet in Tampa and found no art in it. Who told us we deserve to die? My Theo, you, the one with the brown beret, who saw the hydrogen bomb blow from an aircraft carrier at Bikini Island, the one with Hep C and a quiet wife. I don't know if you're still alive, but I pray this world has softened you with its firm, kneading hands, that you're still able to ride your bike up Holmesy to the liquor store on Cedar and can still reach the oranges in the yard. Theo, my Theo, when you wet the bed, is it still my Thea's job to change the sheets? From the kitchen, I see the 12-foot spear over the maguey. I see its fresh blooms, and I know it's about to die. I wonder if it's better to disappear into Aslan or Mazatlan or Marzapan the way you did, or stay in Prather or Marysville and slowly fade into a sofa chair and reruns of Bonanza. Is there any honor in being shot and skinned like Reuben, hacked up in a hospital for lymphoma research, poked and drained with the swollen face of a failed liver? How many more fists will be raised until we can no longer, or better yet, don't have to? I'm tired of thinking these things. Come back, Theo, whenever, or don't. My mom saved you a plate. Also, you left your mesh t-shirt here, and I've been wearing it. I'll read a couple more. This one is it's a bit lighter. I wrote it for a friend's wedding, in the tradition of epithalamium writing. This one was for Jose Olivares and Erica Stallings. They were married last August. It's called "I Want to Marry You So Bad." I want to marry you so bad. I'm a paisa-ass plant, all abundant, like verdolagas in the summer. My hummingbird asked to ancestors already know your name. The nopales in our garden grow heart-shaped, and my breath is flor de calabaza. I want to marry you so bad, I'm less afraid to go to sleep, and I want to live long enough to see you bathe in the shade of this willow tree. I want to marry you so bad. My credit score is steadily rising like a hot air balloon, all romantic, like my financial health, just quit drinking and eating Jack in the Box at 3 a.m. Also, I might give up drinking and eating Jack in the Box at 3 a.m. I want to marry you so bad, I'll drink gallons of green juice and speak more kindly to my mother. I want to marry you so bad. My love has grown as vast and grand as the ocean, and you are the moon, lifting the tides and all the boats. The train of your dress drapes over me. I want to marry you so bad, I'll learn to walk on water so we can dance to DeBarge. The light of your dress is already two-stepping on the waves, my love. Just look how that motherfucker shines. I will, let's see. Let me find something. I'll finish with this one about Fresno. This is the one I read at the city hall meeting which was also quite nerve-wracking since I was standing right next to the mayor while I read, and I could even hear him breathing while I was reading. That's how close we were. Yeah, and so this one is called Fresno Is. Fresno is a leaky El Camino with rust in the bed that doesn't need much to get running. It's growing roots as we speak in a cracked oil-spotted driveway, and its spouted, long-spined arms of bougainvillea, and the fuel door is bursting with clover. When its blooms pop that near neon pink, that's when the engine will finally turn over and it can cruise real slow down Chavez Boulevard. I can hear it now. Somebody's steel blasting from his custom three-wheel bike, and he throws up his shades and whistles as this plant-based biofueled Ranfla turns heads all down the road, leafed limbs scraping as it leans into a three-wheel U-turn. Fresno is a holy well under a mini mall on McKinley and First that becomes the magical pho sold at each of the 5 restaurants there. Fresno is the man digging at the bottom of the well, filling another bucket of dirt, wondering if the next swing on the pick will splash mud in his face. The mud is a dream. Fresno's a dream, whispered about from Saigon to Ayoquesco. It's hidden under several packed feet of hard pan. Fresno is the hard pan. Fresno's the water, the man, the shovel, the hole, the bucket, the darkness, and the light. Fresno is an abuela living off Social Security who bails you out after your 3rd DUI, who used to dance on the west side at the Palomar at the Rainbow, drank too much, and punched her sister-in-law at the VFW, then died with an unpaid credit card from Montgomery Ward. Every failed fruit tree is Fresno's abuela being cremated in a sacred funeral pyre. A memory rendered into ash, its namesake, Fresno, un fresno. Fresno is the elder fig trees that bow their heads into furrowed soil before they're piled, burned, and replaced with almonds. Fresno is whitewashed trunks. It's the fire, it's the almonds. The smoke is so thick, it blurs the mountains and paints new shades of red into the horizon. Mocos stream endlessly from our noses like tears as we cry real tears, waving goodbye from a passing Amtrak train full of recently released cholos with their abuelas' names tattooed on their faces. Thank you all. I'll end there.
Hey, oh my goodness, fantastic.
Very good.
I know you're writing about Fresno, but you're just capturing the whole Central Valley in there. So, and
Thank you.
seriously, your wedding poem has got to be the best, most romantic, most authentic wedding poem I've ever heard or written. Nicely done. So that was amazing.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yay!
I know. Yay, it's
Great
okay to
guy.
unmute and celebrate. And we have one more poet to look forward to. So Bryan Medina is a former student of U.S. Poet Laureate Emeritus Juan Felipe Herrera, and his poetry has graced stages in the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Kansas City. He founded both the Inner Ear Open Mic and the Beatdown Slam as a way to free poetry from the confines of academic institutions, making it accessible to all. And seriously, if poetry doesn't belong to all, who does it belong to? No one. So Medina is a longtime art activist, has been awarded 2 City of Fresno commendations, including the 2014 Fresno Arts Council Horizon Award for contributions to the rich artistic and cultural heritage of Fresno. He is the author of More Than Soil, Less Than Sand, and his work has appeared in journals such as Flies, Cockroaches, and Poets, In the Grove, the San Joaquin Review, Jubilee, and Invisible Memoirs, among others. In 2017, Medina was named Fresno County's 3rd Poet Laureate, serving a distinguished 2-year term, reaching out to the community, featuring readings, school and university visits, writing workshops, and meetings with business and political leaders throughout California. Medina is a Desert Storm Gulf War veteran and a graduate of Fresno Pacific University. Welcome, Bryan.
Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you. Let's give it up for all the poets before. Just, they're killing it. And then you guys got me. I'm sorry. So,
So the best for last.
Well, that's debatable.
The
So
cream always rises, my brother. The cream always rises.
thank you, Ken. All right, so we're gonna jump right into it. My first part, as we say in the Slam Nation, new shit. So I'm gonna do a blackout poem, real short one. Start my timer. All right. They don't want to hear about pain, only when they have a problem. I was scared. I used my wisdom. When people had destroyed others, realized something. You and I wouldn't have to bear so much of ourselves if everybody took part. Little blackout poem. All right, pull this up. If I cut myself off, I'm sorry. All right, some more, as they say, new shit. It's called Inside America. Inside the crater of another dead body left on the ground, inside the top secret files found at the former president's palatial estate, inside the excuse used by insurrectionists storming the Capitol, inside the classroom of a teacher with a loaded gun, inside the pedophile priest's congregation, inside the home of a killed Ukrainian soldier's family, inside the white supremacist MAGA meeting, inside the mind of a parent of a COVID-infected baby, inside the beggar with his hand out, inside the poet opening another wound resides fear. It's uneasiness diffusing like a loaded gun, and my mouth, that itchy trigger finger on the trigger where even love was taken down as an enemy. Thank you. These next few poems are, I'm going to call them Fresno stories. This one's called In This Valley, There Is a Home. It's here in this valley, this time off the 99, between city walls and open land that asks me nightly to repent or get swallowed up along streets littered with gangsters and drug paraphernalia. It's asphalt cracks laying before me, filled with blood and dust and long lines of contempt. Here in the front yard, when at night my pop's high bass voice once cracked against the shh of TV interference in the bedroom, pounding on the secondhand black and white. I said, pounding on the secondhand black and white like he did me, where mom's cooking went hand in hand with my hands, mixing the masa, gathering the spices, cooking the meat, as Motown's greatest crooned from the old radio with the broken antenna, foiled wrapped around its severed edge. In a corner of a small kitchen, in the back of an even smaller house, its air moist, her breath warm against my face. Here at Einstein Park, where I, the young poet, first kissed the girl in my 6th grade class who smelled of shampoo and talcum powder. The simple way her hair was straight and soft, and mine kinky and coarse. Did she know my fixed stare and deliberate voice with Old Spice cologne with shaky knees, looking not for love, but for escape? Where in the summer, my hoodlum friends and I rode around the east side blocks on old twin bicycles and tank tops, stole from the stores of Fulton Mall, walked under the lights of the Tower District, and when we got older, cruised Kings Canyon to Don Orale, listening to Zap Santana and something that went, hey baby, baby, with the high heels on, in my Uncle Chewy Chevy, as Afro heads bob to a thriving beat from the trunk, sharing time like there was an overabundance of it. Here on the corner of Martin Luther King and Jensen, where I cried for my homies and sisters taken way too soon. Like I cried for my mother who's only known sickness and no good men. angry at a system that rewards complacency and the need to get on over. Yes, here in this town with bad air, suspect city officials, and wretched summer heat, which poets put in poems like the one I'm reading to y'all now to say, I love this town by the 99. I love you. I love this town by the 90. I love you. I love you.
Yeah, love it. But I just have one question, Bryan.
Yes, sir.
When you were saying suspect city officials, did you mean our poet laureate or
Maybe.
hangs out with the mayor?
Possibly. We like to jib and jab with one another, so it's all good. All right, this next one's called Reruns. Maybe it was those hours alone by the television set. Jerry Springer in the mid-morning, where Mama rose from her bed dazed and lethargic from another night at work, slaving away at back alley sweatshops along Belmont Avenue, ingesting amphetamines in threes so she could take any extra shift for 10 cents more. Coming back home, the warm glow from the cable TV stuck between the gap of Letterman's front teeth and uncluttered cleavage from Girls Gone Wild ads. Her little girl contemplating why no one saw Norm's wife, Vera, or Kramer's real name. Asking Mama, why can't she be like one of the families she sees on the tube? And Mama answering back, honey, at 13, my life, she said, was nothing more than rusting souvenirs, broken dreams of another generation deferred, tender and lopsided as spoiled fruit. Quoting a passage from a book she couldn't even remember. And when I die, may they pick me apart, sent to rest in unmarked graves to lie down and forget. Forget how her father traded loud youth for silent sins in between nondescript motel rooms. The bowl of glass pipes, this incurable disease that leaves dishes unwashed, the toilet unclean, a child unloved. Let it burn to the ground. Her bowed head sinking lower than the weighted shoulders that seemed to lock her into place. Her voice breaking, eyes welling with salty contempt. Honey, we can change our names, but we can't change our faces. The great thing about being here in Fresno is that you can pick up a rock and throw it at someone and more than likely you'll hit a poet. And that's a great conversation, like, hey fool, why you throw a rock at me? And then you just talk, you know? That's how I met Kenny, but that's another story. So this one's called, one of my favorite ones. And this one's to my mother, to dance with my mother. I have at one time or another been in love with my mother. This woman who smelled the freshly mixed masa with hints of aquanet, who danced as if her life was in jeopardy every time she stopped, stirring like the beating of an Aslan drum, moving, moving, moving. Oh, to be born again and again with each new movement, stripping away the cosmic fabric of the universe down to the juicy white meat. Those Aslan drums raging in my mother's mind, telling a tale through her busy dark feet. Hip hopping, hip hopping. Hold on, baby. Mama gotta flip this record over. 1 for the money, 2 for the show. You see, Mama was a dancer, a diamond-headed hammer slamming down, who smelled like carnation milk and roses when she sweated to a beat, becoming that little girl she once was, who wore stockings and a braid down her fine brown back. There, in the middle of the floor, a pool of light, a spirit awash in sweats, moving, moving, moving. There's a story going down, y'all, they used to say when she danced. Her legs and feet pressing verses against our hardwood floor or soft earth outside, chanting to a spirit only she could see. Lord, give me the groove to make this house move, because Mama was a dancer. crooning about the place in a cha-cha, mamba, or samba, then breaking it down with a shake of the hips into a little boogie. Tito Puente, Motown. How they long to kiss your lips for the way you moved your hips, girl, guiding their music with her passion. You could see the determination. You could see where she was light. You could see where she was dark in the middle, carrying their beats on her toes. Music the river, music the flame, music the sound of life in her veins. So yes, Mom, dance the night away. Open up your world to the cosmos. Becoming that little girl who used to look up into the night sky and dream. You holding my little body back then, your breath warm against my face, moving, always moving.
Very nice, very nice.
See, what's my time? Oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to make this a real quick one. This one's called Under the Skin, and this will be my last poem. It starts with how the window is left, cracked open from another warm night leading into a morning that's already 78 degrees. I throw on khaki shorts, my favorite Miles Davis black shirt, sandals, and I am out the door. On my way through urban sprawl, past convenience stores and gas stations, streets littered with dust. Past sun-faded billboards, a newly waxed Hummer whizzing by across the road, past a homeless person pushing a shopping cart next to a field of Mong Planet strawberries, where the tire-worn gravel shares its own stories of love and loss, random acts of violence, pain, and redemption. The sore black, blue-collar, dirt-ridden Chevy S10s mingling with the white-collared middle management high-revving Beamers and Saabs. From the walking, biking, or bus riding minimum wage earners wearing their freshly laundered uniforms, to the average worker who's living check to check, off to work another day's pay, to the shrill shrieks of lawn tools from sweaty brown laborers landscaping down the streets with their mix of broken English and Spanish, reminding me of my own family, where daddy's good cooking from outside brings the neighbors by every weekend during the hot Fresno summer evenings, while Motown's greatest croon from the nearly 20-year-old speakers placed out on the back porch anytime the pit is lit, let me tell y'all. And when Mama makes her Christmas time tamales, given at the height of the foggy season in December, each a present all unto themselves, giving freely to friends. Past streets named MLK, Fulton, Kings Canyon, coming back to finding myself under the lights of the trendy Tower District and jumping on the bus. Transfer. Sitting down, listening to two teenage girls, 2 seats down from me, talking of classes and this year's rapidly approaching graduation in just weeks. Both to be their families first, one white, the other Muslim. My city, often referred to as a jaded and broken woman, yet still, I open my arms. She pulls me closer. Drama is the tough skin of a tattoo. Pride is an act of remembering. Bus routes are arteries with corpuscles of people. A sigh is a mother praying. She lets me know. Internet, she lets me know I'm home. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I think we can unmute and applaud Bryan and applaud our poets. Bryan, thank you.
Thank you,
There you go,
Gillian.
Bryan.
Yay.
Thank you,
Bryan, you're-
Gillian.
All of you were so great.
Yep. Bryan,
Thank
your
you all.
poems just rock. You have everything in there. You have movement and, of course, sound plays off each other, but there's smell, there's taste, there's everything. Your poems just jump out. I would say they jump off the page, but they just jump out of the computer. And you just capture things so well. So thank you so much. And I just want to say how grateful I am to share this Central Valley and share our poetry community, our wider poetry community with all of you guys. This is fabulous. Fresno's got it going on and has for a long time, but we have Newman and Turlock and Modesto all here today, all represented here today. The Central Valley has it going on, and people count us out over and over. They should not. So, because I feel like we are rising and rising and rising, and we're just going to keep getting stronger. And I love that we can do that as a whole community. So thank you. Let's have another round of off-mute applause and cheering for our poets. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you, Gillian.
The best.
Yes, thank you, Gillian.
Yes,
My-
thank you for all being here.
Yeah, entirely my pleasure. So thank you so much. I do want to offer an open mic for a few minutes. If anybody's interested, you could have.
I have one. I have one I'd like to
Yeah, for
Go
sure.
for it,
Hey.
Tina.
Rock that.
Hey.
So
You
I
gave so
also
much
have-
positive energy. So thank you. Thank you. You were so positive.
Yeah. So inspired by y'all. I've seen Bryan read before some time ago, like a couple years ago, with a different Michael, and loved y'all's stuff. And so I also just echo everything everyone said. Really inspired by y'all. So I have one that's also new that I think is done, but now I'm going to read it out loud. So we'll see what happens, you know, because those are the different edits. And then just to bring in other voices, this is called Stone Eater. And it's inspired by the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin, or I might have mixed those things up for ADHD, but if you haven't read that fantasy series, it's incredible. So this one's called Stone Eater. Let me go through your discard piles. I'm afraid of the new. It doesn't feel attached to anything real to me. Better the items you are throwing away, the refuse you don't want to look at anymore. I'm comfortable with these things. I don't trust items without a story or strings. They lack familiarity. Promise too much for nothing. The damaged is full of potential with less chances of ruin. There's also more material here to work with in the generosities of desperation, darkness, and fear. The things that make us run, all of these are welcome here. And there are enough to never run out. Together, we will digest them with the intention of turning them into something new, our contribution to the process. I promise to make better of them than when they came, to treat them with the respect and care they deserve. Watch me now as I begin to chew a stone. Momento. That's it.
Nice. Thank you,
Beautiful.
Tina.
Last line.
All right.
Right.
All right. Wonderful. Somebody else want to share? Gary, go for it.
Thank you, gentlemen. And
Good.
thank you, Tina, for these great poems so far. Anyway, okay, this was originally going to be called Inventory Reduction, but it didn't seem to make it. So this is, I've done a lot of pruning in my life, and this is about that. And it's about my least favorite kind of pruning. On winnowing. First, be furious, keen, fired up after over pruning a snarly stone fruit tree. Stand grimly facing your 5 raw wall shelves and 4 pressboard bookcases overstuffed with 50 yards of poetry. Scan titles and names. See if you remember reading these. Might want to again or ever. Ask yourself if anyone else would. Insert size here. Find yourself inside this forest. Sit down slowly, softly, eyes closed. Anything emanating from the afterglow of lake? Oliver's wild geese announcing your place as you follow Bill Stafford's thread? Are you embers now, inhaling years of book pollen, but still able to chase evidence of dog-eared truth beyond puny facts? Do you drift off pre-dreaming ocean, Vuong or Frank? If so, do this. Slide such volumes an inch toward you. Stroke the spines as if conjuring lines and stanzas you can't live without. If not, yank the ones that lecture like your least prized pedagogue. Place, not fling them, into an unused banker's box, elegizing the loss of them as you notice there is more room now for other poetry. The mound beside your reading chair, the stack crammed into your magazine rack, and those you haven't ordered yet. Maybe you're through with last month's poetry reviews as well. All the grain that was there now implanted, assimilated at last. Enough with threshing your library for now. Admire all trees, gather peaches, recite the water. Thanks.
Nice, nice, Gary. Thank you. Yeah. Something I think we can all relate to. Wonderful. Somebody else want to share a poem?
I feel like there's one more. Somebody has a poem. Come on. Who is it?
All right, well, it might be from me. I'll share a poem.
I knew it.
I've been working on a series where the title has somebody telling me something, usually something kind of annoying. And in the end of the poem, there's always a pocket. So it kind of works its way out and it's shaped like that. So this is called Some Guy at the Hardware Store Tells Me to Smile. And I, unsmiling, wonder why. Why should I smile as I scrutinize the bins of screws, figuring out which one would be the best for this home repair job I've undertaken? This man, wearing a t-shirt for one team and a baseball cap for some other, tells me to smile, and I, unsmiling, look up and wonder why. How would smiling help me figure out which screw? And yeah, I know my face in concentration is not perhaps appealing, but I want to remind him it is not meant to be appealing. It is not a face for him. It is a face looking into innumerable bins of innumerable screws and figuring out which one would be best for mounting a shelf in a cabinet. Berger said, a woman learns to look at herself the way those outside her look at her. And golly gee, I guess I plumb forgot. This man wants cute. This man wants appealing. This man wants a little bright smile like a little bright gift, an undeserved gift to come his way. Never mind the job at hand. Never mind the human at hand. Never mind that he doesn't know me or why I'm staring into bins of screws. Outside, he'll hop into his truck and pull away, forgetting to check the rearview mirror, but it's okay. The world is his for the taking. Another car will not be in the way. The next woman will smile, teeth glinting in the light, just for him. And if she doesn't, well, then she's a bitch, he'll think. Inside, I've got my little bag of exactly right screws for the job, and I've got my smile in my pocket, and no one, not him, not you, can make me use it.
Ha ha.
Oh, wow.
Ha ha.
That was so good.
Getting
Has that one been-
feisty.
Is that one new, or has that one been picked up already?
That one has not been picked up yet. So
That one's going
I think
somewhere.
there
one's
are eight of this series, and the first one just got picked up this last week by Thule Review. So trying to send them out in the world. So, but thank you, everybody. Anybody else want to share anything? Wait time. That's what we get for being a teacher. All right, my friends. Well, Linda?
Well, okay.
Woohoo! I saw that mute go
Hooray.
off.
Yeah. So, oh shoot. I've been working on a series about famous women. And when I read about this woman, I couldn't resist. This is Michaeline Wautier, who lived 1604 through 1689. It's called Lost and Found. 9 feet high, 12 feet wide, 334 years old, a masterpiece emerges from obscurity. Corpulent and naked, Bacchus lolls in leopard skin and light. Round-bellied boys wrestle a goat, and tan men skew toward the frame. But dressed in pink, it is the artist who regards us, one breast bared, luminous.
All right. Wow. Thank you. All right. I think I need to read it again. So, but thank you, Linda. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Gary, for sharing your poems. And thank you again to all our featured poets today. This has been a true pleasure. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like I'm going to write some more poetry, and it's because of you guys. So thank you for that too. We'll be back next month with more poetry. I'll be hosting the June poetry reading as well. We don't know who yet, so it'll be a surprise, but keep an eye out. It's always great to have you join us. It'll be on Zoom, and so you can join from wherever you are. Thank you so much, and take good care, everyone.
Goodbye.
Good to
Bye.
see you guys.
Good to see
Thank
you
you.
too. Excellent.
Thank
Take
you
care,
all.
Brian.
Thank you, Gillian.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for
Thank you,
reading,
Gillian.
Linda.
Bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Have a good evening.
Take care. Good to see you again. All right. Thanks for coming, Maribel. All right. Bye, Michael. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, thank you.
See ya.